Hey guys, my name is Leah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the Bookternet All Star Charity challenge. This was a challenge started by Rachel Marie to raise money for COVID-19 relief. I'll link her original video and all of the information about the relief fund down in the description below. So the idea of this challenge is to go through some of sort of the all-stars of the book community in terms of authors and books. So these are some of the books and authors that people talk about a lot, and to talk about if you have or haven't read them and what you thought about them if you have read them. There's also a little graphic created for this, so I'll put that up on the screen. So the first thing on here is the author Angie Thomas, who wrote The Hate U Give and On the Come Up, and I have not read either of those. I actually am looking at my copy of The Hate U Give right now. I've had it for a while. I've been meaning to read it since it came out. I really want to read it. I just have not gotten around to it. I'm definitely going to read it this year though. It's one of the books that I really wanted to finally get to this year. Next is the Shatter Me series by Tahereh Mafi. I never read this, and at this point it feels like I would kind of be late in the game to get into it, and I also don't know that I really have an interest in reading it, so I probably won't end up picking that one up. Next is Leigh Bardugo, and Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom are two of my favorite books of all time. For a while those were the only two I had read, but this year I finally went and read the Grisha Trilogy by her, and I really wasn't sure I would like it. I actually had pretty low expectations and I ended up enjoying it. I gave the first book in the series 3 stars, and then I gave the second 2 4 stars. I know a lot of people find the second book to be the most boring and slow, but it introduced my favorite character, so I really enjoyed it. I actually just started reading Language of Thorns, and I'm going to be picking up King of Scars really soon. I haven't read Ninth House by her yet, but I am planning on reading it at some point. Next up is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I haven't really read any of Holly Black's young adult books. When I was younger, I really liked the Spiderwick Chronicles by her and Tony someone. I don't remember. I haven't read any of her young adult books. I once started reading one of them, but I couldn't really get into it. So unless some of my friends read it and really like it, I don't really have plans to read The Cruel Prince. Next up is The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. I haven't actually read any books by Rin Chupeco, and I really want to read some soon, so I think I'll be picking up at least one book by her in the next year. This book does sound interesting to me, and I think I will pick it up at some point. It's just not really a high priority on my list right now, but I know a lot of people have been talking about her new book, Wicked As You Wish, so I might pick that up soon. Next up is V. Schwab, and I have not read any of her books, even though I've been meaning to for years. I really want to read A Darker Shade of Magic. I really want to read The Savage Song. Oh, and I can see that one from where I'm sitting as well. You will find I've been meaning to read this but haven't gotten around to it, a common theme of this video. Next up is the Lunar Chronicles, which I have read. I read that entire series in high school and really enjoyed it. I think I gave all of them 4 stars. Next up is another author, and that's Adam Silveira. I have not read any of Adam Silveira's solo books. I think at some point I'll pick one of them up just to kind of see what his writing is like, but honestly I don't have the biggest interest in his books. I did read What If It's Us, which was co-authored by him and Becky Albertalli, and I enjoyed it. It was fine, but it didn't blow me away, so I don't know that I really have plans to pick up any of his books anytime soon. Next up is Cassandra Clare, and I've read Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices, and I read Lady Midnight, but I haven't read Lord of Shadows or Queen of Air and Darkness yet, and I need to read those so that I can catch up with everything and read Chain of Gold, because I really want to read Chain of Gold, but I'm a little behind on reading all of her books. Next up is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and going off of things that I've said before in this video, I've been meaning to read this for a while and haven't. I really want to read this, and several people have recommended it to me, and I've seen everyone talking about it, and Evelyn Hugo is by. I just need to pick it up, and I haven't. I actually have the ebook on hold for my library right now, but it's like a 13-week long hold, so it's going to be a while probably. Next up is Laini Taylor. I have not read any of her books, but I am planning on reading Daughter Smoke and Bone at some point. I have the books. Haven't read them. Are you seeing a theme of me having books and not having read them yet? I want to try to get to those ones this year, but they're not a priority right now, so I think if I end up reading them this year, it'll be later on in the year. Next up is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristob, and I have read that. I have read some of the books on this list. I did read it a while ago. I remember really enjoying it, thinking it was very fast-paced. I liked the combination of files and the structure of it. I actually do own the second book in the series and I want to read it, but it's been so long since I read Illuminae that I feel like I need to reread that first before I pick Gemina up. Next up is Scythe. And like most books on this list, I've been meaning to pick it up for a long time and I have not. It is actually right behind me. I don't really have an excuse for this one, especially because I feel like I didn't really see people talking about Neil Shusterman until Scythe came out and people were raving about it. And I read the Untitled by him in high school and was completely obsessed with it. I gave every book in that series 5 out of 5 stars. I just thought it explored really interesting concepts. I don't know how I would feel about it if I read it for the first time now. I loved that series so much that when I saw everyone raving about Scythe, I knew I had to pick it up. I have it. Have not read it. Next author on the list is Sara J Mass. I have read A Court of Thorns and Roses by her. It was a while ago and I enjoyed reading it at the time, but I don't know if I would enjoy it if I read it now, and I don't really have plans on continuing on with that series. I've also read the first Throne of Glass book and I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't really enjoy it that much and I decided not to continue on with the series. Next is Ember in the Ashes, which is another book that I own that I have not read. One of my friends read this and really liked it, and I ended up getting it, and it's now been sitting on my bookshelf for several years without reading it, so another book I need to read. Finally, we get to something else that I actually have things to talk about for. Next is Seanan McGuire, and I have actually read some of her books. I've read all of her Wayward Children series. The fourth one, In an Absent Dream, was my favorite. I really like the concept of these series. I know a lot of people have problems with this series because the books are so short, and I will say I wish they were a little bit longer because I really like the characters and I love even more, but they're such quick reads and they explore such interesting different worlds and different characters, and I'm definitely going to be continuing on and reading every book she publishes in that series. Also by Seanan McGuire, I've read Middle Game, which is this adult sci-fi, maybe you could call it horror. I'm not really a horror reader, so I don't know if it's necessarily horror, but it has kind of some of those vibes. That book is so good. I was utterly blown away by that book. I finished reading it, wanted to reread it. I haven't reread it yet, but I think I might do that at some time this year because I bought it. That was actually my top book of 2019. I just think that book has such an interesting concept and the writing is amazing. And even though it's a really big book, it kept me engaged the entire time. I wanted to know what was going to happen to the two main characters and just it was so fascinating. The next book on here is The Poppy War, which, yes, I have not read it. However, I am going to be reading it next month because I'm buddy reading it with a bunch of friends on Twitter. So, have not read it, but will be reading it soon. The last thing on this list is the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series by Jenny Han, which I have read the first 2 books of, but I don't really remember what happens in them outside of what was in the movies because I have seen the movie adaptations. I want to read the 3rd book before the 3rd movie adaptation comes out, especially because I have some opinions after watching the 2nd movie. And I want to see how the series ends up. Before I read the 3rd book though, I do want to reread the first 2 books in the series because I don't really remember what happens in them and I know they're slightly different from the movies. I got the ebook of the first book out from the library a little while ago and I have started reading it. I think I'm on like chapter 4 and I'm planning on continuing with that, so I think I will be finishing that reread sometime soon and then finally reading the last book in the series. So in case you couldn't tell, there are a lot of popular Booktube books that I want to read that I have not gotten around to yet. So hopefully I will be doing that sometime soon. If you have any thoughts on these books, and especially the ones that I haven't read, if you really like them and think I should pick them up sometime soon, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later. Stars. Of Evelyn Hugo. Hugo? No, it's Hugo. 3. There are so many books I haven't read. Excuse me. Before